All right, everybody. Thank you for being with us at Inner Solar 2024. Are you having a good time so far?
Go J-Hop.
All right. That's actually, they're having more fun than me, clearly. We've got coffee if you need to get your clap on the other side. Really excited about this conversation today. Kind of a podcast / panel with some of the industry's, my opinion, brightest minds available. I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves, and for the sake of getting to know our audience here, let's say the world's ending tomorrow and you have Franklin backup, so your house works fine. What are you serving your guests for dinner? Final meal.
Final meal is we're going down to Seaside Market.
Yep.
I'm going to get some fillets and some T-bones, some ribeyes, and we're going to put them on the Traeger.
Yep.
And we're going to just slow smoke those suckers and sit by the fire and watch the sun go down.
I love it.
No.
I love it. Who are you?
That's what we're doing?
Yeah.
All right. I'm Scott Hyde. I am the CEO of Code Energy Group and another little lesser-known company called Sonobi. It's the absolute shit.
You can swear.
The CEO of that company. It's a tech company. It's incredible, and really happy to be here. Thank you, J-Hop.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Ben Solons, make content for a living, cover batteries and those kind of things. So if anyone's watching or listening, that's probably where they know me from. But data science was my career for 20 years prior to doing any of this stuff. Last meal, my wife just recently got into making fresh pasta.
Oh.
So probably like lemon piccata chicken with some fresh pasta or something like that.
Love that.
So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I'm Smoot. I'm the CEO of Green Tech Network. I'm a fun tech guy as well. I'm running a campaign here with the city of Bakersfield called the Destination Foundation. So Bakersfield is where I got the button. That's why I'm here representing, and it's a pleasure to be here. I would have some Foster Primavera. The veggies are real popular. Easy to grow in Bakersfield because it's such a firm place. So I'll be doing that Foster Primavera.
Love it.
Good stuff. Since we're
No, you can be loud. You can talk loud. It's not, speak it up. Send it. Full send. Yeah.
Since we're here in San Diego, I'd have to say California burrito.
Yes. Right? Yes. Dude.
It's close, it's practical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm Jake Hess. I run SolarCon. I was founder of SolarCon, did Solar Academy, trained people across the country, consulted businesses, and I do a lot of social media stuff. Thanks.
Yeah. And I will say California burrito is the greatest invention of food ever made. When I used to play baseball at Point Loma here up on the hill. And when I was in college, a free burrito got you a free haircut. If you brought me a burrito, I'd give you a fade. That was my daddy. So excited again, you guys. I know a lot of tech, a lot of different products here. Specifically, Franklin works in the residential space, right? Historically speaking, we're known as providing whole home energy freedom to homeowners. That's where we sit. Each panelist here works towards a consumer conversation in a different way, right? Scott, you run a really heavy company, multiple branches. Ben, you're really educating the consumer. Les, you are an interesting fact because not only are you an influencer, but you're also, orchestrating policy within the city of Bakersfield and using that microphone to change policy. And Jake, you're kind of the godfather of sales and education and understanding how the market work. And I would say there's probably 10,000 reps, not more, 20,000 reps that at some point in time, look to you for advice and guidance. We're in a really interesting time in our industry, right? A recent article came out, 70% drop in business after NEM 3.0. So I'm gonna kind of target this at Jake and Scott. Specifically, Scott, before NEM 3.0, you guys had done a handful of batteries, and now you have a 100% attachment rate. Do you see this being able to continue to navigate the market this way? Well, how are you guys going to survive in a post NEM 3.0 world? Going right at it.
How are we going to survive?
Yes.
Sheer grit. It's a mess. I think that if anybody that's an EPC or installer right now that is pretending that their business is in good shape, you're an anomaly if that's the case.
Yeah.
And I tip my hat to you for either being in a phenomenal market, not named California, or you're a great operator. And I think the industry as a whole needs to really coalesce and come together more and share best practices so that the feeling of like, I hope my competitor goes out of business so that I can assume all this market share as business is really a pretty narrow-minded view, and it actually ends up hurting you in the long run. We need to support and elevate our competitors as much as we want to be successful. There is such thing as you can win while your competitor wins too, and I think that as we, this is maybe a bit of a longer-winded answer to your question, but we went from 0 battery installs to 100% battery installs. And so to get to that point, we had to make a philosophical change in our business. We decided, hands down, no matter what we're going to do, we were always going to sell a battery. We would not accept any jobs that did not have a battery.
Yeah.
There are a handful of pockets in California where you can sell where a battery is not the same because NEM 3.0 doesn't affect it like a DWP. But most of our sales teams were in the major IOUs, right? PG&E, SCE, SDG&E. And so we just made a hard stop. No matter what, there was going to be no sales that came in that did not have a battery. That's a brutal change.
Yeah.
I mean, from an install standpoint, you're now hoping that you can do an install and a battery install on the same day to make it profitable. And so you're looking at like the economics of the business. There's only a handful of things that you can really effectively change. Your profit margins are directly tied and correlated to how many kilowatts per day can you install per crew. That's it.
Yeah.
If the max you can install is capped by the system size total that you're getting in California, which the average is around 6.8 kilowatts in California, at least for us. So if my crews are not installing 6.8 kilowatts pretty efficiently, and they still have to install a battery, if it takes them all day long to install 6.8 kilowatts, to then tap in a battery on top of it means that you're paying at least twice as much for labor as you did before. I don't know if anyone's checked or not, but California labor is the least expensive in the entire United States. So if you're not really efficient, it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So for us to make that change, we knew that even if it was a really tough bullet to bite, we would have to do it and become very proficient at our job, or we would not survive. So I don't think that I don't think anyone in California that's selling without a battery, in my own personal opinion, is doing it right. I think that if you're selling without a battery, you are selling your customers short and you're effectively lying to them at the door, or you don't know. And if you're uneducated and you don't know and you're pretending to be an expert in the field and you're saying, I'm going to give you a solar system and it doesn't include a battery in California, you are either ignorant or dishonest.
Dangerous.
One of which is not something I want to be associated with. So we made the decision. We spent a lot of time on education, a lot of time on making sure the tech was set up in a way that would make something very complex into something simple as much as we could. And we're white-knuckling the hell out of it, trying to make it through. That's what's happening.
Thanks, man. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, I think the honesty really is the best policy, right, in this game, and sharing the knowledge that we have. Jake, that's something you're pretty exceptional at. What are you seeing in the market? Like, what are moves that guys are making, swing thoughts that they're keeping in their head that is keeping them driving forward and staying afloat? What are you seeing?
I've seen a lot of guys and ladies talking about, this perseverance. I know it's easy to say, but what I mean by that is most people that we look up to in our culture and our society are the ones that say, when the economy's down, invest. When everyone's quitting, lean in and practice harder. Like, all of the leaders in our culture, at least, are kind of paving the way and showing us that if we stick through this and we keep going, that we'll make it through. And it's not even just people in other parts of the world I'm talking about. I'm talking about even in our own industries. We've seen it. We've seen this dip before, not to this extent, right? But we have seen this dip. We've had people afraid. I think adaptation to what our economy is doing in the industry is happening right now. I think every company out there, not every one of them, but the ones that I've been visiting, a lot of people in the industry, I don't think I've ever seen such a large and unified, massive movement to figure out how to make something work so quickly, and also have people unifying organizations like RSA, for example, or organizations like other conferences. It's not just mine. People are actually trying to educate people all across this country right now. I think it's all part of a unified movement for everyone to kind of understand what is happening to our utilities, right? And it's not just California. California may be at the forefront of this. Hawaii was there, right?
Right.
Hawaii already went through this. We should have
Yeah.
watched. We should have paid attention to Hawaii.
Right.
Now we're over here like, oh, this is crazy. This randomly happened. It's not right. It's
Yeah.
happened before. And so we should, we should. Maybe it's just difficult. Everyone wants to be profitable. Sales reps are driving it down. And I think to fix the problem, it would be with the mentality of sales reps.
Right.
Because sales reps don't understand that we need to raise the prices
Yes.
to installers. And what they're doing is they're going to their installers frustrated and shopping and leaving and saying and making threats. If we don't lower it, I'll go there. This company's willing to do it because they don't understand that an installer could put a red line at 80 cents a watt or $9 a watt. They don't know what that means, right?
Right.
So they hear 80 cents and they all go running. And it hurts the installer that had their volume. So it destroys them and then they do it again. I mean, all across this country, if I were to boil it down to something, I would say educating the masses and the revenue stream, which is the sales people. If we can educate that revenue stream and have them understand the reason we are putting batteries on the grid right now in California, or why California was motivated to raise the net metering prices and make it so difficult on everyone. If they truly understand why that is happening, then maybe they would lift their heads up long enough to see that California is still profitable. When you get solar, when you put solar and battery in California, in a lot of these markets, you're still saving money. That's not the same across the whole country. So where is it going wrong here? In my mind, it's the sales reps mentality and lack of education.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, right? You are such an important, it's funny, I've been doing this 15 years. I started in 2008. And I've seen there's certain people that emerge into the solar space that really kind of transfix eyes. It's been fun to watch you for the last year and a half because I think, the willingness to speak honestly, to say what it is, put guys on blast, and be honest with yourself. What are you doing here, right? Education to consumers is everything. But if our sales market is not educated, we're going to misinform consumers and inevitably lead this industry down the wrong path. Which brings me to my next two hosts, right, who are the actual literal influencers in the space. Ben Solins, please introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So in this space, I started out covering electric cars.
Yeah.
I got one because they were cool. I never thought cars were cool until I drove a Tesla Model S. Blew my mind. And then through that process, ended up getting a battery from them for free. Mm-hmm. And that opened up my eyes. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Everybody needs this. And back when I started, when I first got my Powerwall, prior to my Franklin battery, the math actually didn't make a lot of sense. I'm sure you guys know there was some study at Stanford about the price per kilowatt of electricity, and if it was 14 cents or below on average, the math on a battery didn't add up. Well, now here in San Diego, where I live, it's like the most expensive in the whole country. So
right.
The math is just a no-brainer. And so for me, the past year or so, I've really transitioned away from cars because outside of a few, they're really not that interesting anymore. It's just like, well, here's another EV.
Yeah.
And I've really focused on the home energy side, so solar panels and all that. And thankfully now, the math is very apparent, especially like you were saying. If you just sit down and do it, yeah, and Franklin's good because they have the longer warranty. That really makes a big difference. So,
right.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing now is a huge amount of interest from my audience about what type of battery to get, how much energy do I need, et cetera, et cetera. How does it, like people don't understand that when you get a battery, Tesla may sell you one Powerwall for $6,000, but that's not enough. That's going to back up your fridge and your router. That's not your whole house. They don't know that yet. So I guess that's my job and your job to some extent is to say, educate the consumer so that way when they do call their installer, whoever did their solar 15 years ago, they know what they're talking about. So yeah. It's been an interesting transition. It's so hot right now.
I love it. So what's the number one asked question, comment that you get on your videos? Because you've got hundreds of thousands of people piping in there. What's the number one question you get asked that's probably the most relevant to these professionals here today?
They ask me to be single.
The most common question is, where's your Roadster?
Yeah.
The question related to this is, does the money make sense? Okay. Right? I think a lot of folks here know way more than I do, certainly about the technical side of battery chemistry and inverters and all that stuff. And to the consumer, I can tell you that no one cares. No one cares at all what chemistry it is. I just want to know, am I going to protect my family and am I going to save money? That's it. I'm I'm going to maximize my investment. And if you can prove that to me, then you've got a sale.
Yeah.
If you go on some long thing about how lithium iron phosphate is better, whatever, no one cares. Right? So that's what I get hit with a lot of, and that's why in my videos I really don't try to go into it, because I think at the end of the day, if you're a homeowner, your father like me, husband, all that, you want to protect your family. That's where I lean into. Sure, the money makes sense, but more so, we've had, just in North County a couple weeks ago, there's a big outage, right? And so it happens all the time, and I don't want to be without power. And so I think that, leading into that is the easy one, but just focusing on, look, you will make money. This is a smart investment, is the easy sale, I think, from there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Les, my man, this has been a long time brewing, right? This conversation. I'm a big fan of you, what you've been doing on LinkedIn, because it's such an interesting space to be an influencer. Like, who wants to take that kind of criticism, man? I don't want to live in a space of professionals, right? I like to go where I can stay hidden. You've kind of come to the forefront, and you are using clean energy to not only, your platform, not to only educate consumers, but to educate policy and drive policy change. Talk to me about some significant wins in Bakersfield that you've been able to achieve over the last few weeks that I saw recently.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, on a broader scale over the last few years, you probably didn't see it, but on LinkedIn they have the big ideas for 2024. 34 big ideas. And one of those big ideas for 2027 was electric vehicles powering our home. That's a subject I'm very focused on, working with companies like Signbox and just in general being actively involved in the policy, regulatory proceedings.
Yep.
And that has become something that is more well known. And what was so funny is I along the way use certain phrases called batteries on wheels or power plants on wheels to try to conceptualize what this really means. And then everybody started using it, and I'm glad that they did. In a way, you got to trademark stuff before you put it out.
Be advised.
I'll give you some advice. But lately, I took this initiative of bringing people together on LinkedIn to try to drive economic development of the region of Bakersfield. So I'm working with the city of Bakersfield. Some recent wins. There's some things that are not public, but there will be companies opening up, facilities, manufacturing, doing demonstrations of advanced technology, including vehicles to grid. One exciting thing that's coming to Bakersfield is a study at Columbia University about agrivoltaics, and that study will help form essentially the market research necessary for people to say, hey, this is something that I want to do as a developer, as a technologist, as a financier, and all of those things. So I'm excited about seeing people come together for the various things. But what I would say in terms of what's going on in the solar market in general, people need to get involved. They need to get involved in the local government, the regulatory scene. They can't be caught blindsided, in situations like this. Again, you got to be prepared. So that would be some advice that I have, by the way. But yeah, there's some wins happening, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity to leverage content to make things happen.
Good. I love that you bring that up. One of the things that's interesting, we got $1.5 trillion, right, of innovation being funded over the next decade from the Department of Energy. I'd like to think that that's going to result in more efficient solar panels, but we know that this isn't it. Our industry is opening up wide. Franklin is specific. We do one thing, and we do it very well. We're not really trying to make inverters for everybody's systems. We're not trying to own that other side of the meter. Like we see ourselves as an energy management device. That's it. We want to open source everything. So what are some of the technologies that people may not even know are right in front of them that are coming down the pipe, especially as related to V2X? Because, as you guys may know, the cost of transformers is incredible. So bringing that power from the car to the home, stepping it up to 240 is virtually impossible for under $5,000 to $6,000. So, what are you seeing in the technology space that you're really excited about, and I'm moving this up to everybody, over the next 4 or 5 years that you think can really shape the lifetime value of your clients and your customers?
I'll just start with the G, the X, the B, whatever.
Yeah.
Letter the alphabet you want to call it. Basically, batteries, power plants on wheels. The key is really going to be integration, interoperability interoperability like what you're talking about with Franklin. What I'm excited about is you being able to plug your car into your Franklin and operate the generator side of the battery to really then tap into your car. What's going to happen is you're not going to need an additional net metering agreement. You're going to need to ask permission, and the utilities aren't going to be able to stop you from moving electricity from place to place. Hey, buddy, I don't have any money. How about I throw you some of my juice from my car? I'm hungry. You know, something like that. I mean, you know, who knows what it's going to open up as far as market opportunities go. But eventually, you're going to be able to see the full integration and interoperability of electric cars with systems like yours. But it's going to need to be, you know, essentially operating as a generator.
Yeah.
And then another thing that's happening in California is gas-powered generators are being banned. It's like lift blowers, gas-powered generators. So what generator are you going to plug into your system for extra juice? It's going to, in my opinion, be on the car.
You have nothing?
I've got one
Technology I've ever heard called solar panel.
I'll parlay on that with something that I'm really excited about here, and I don't know if you guys probably know closer than I do where it's at, but the concept of a virtual power plant. And so imagine if vehicle to grid really becomes a technology that people can access. Right now it seems there's so many hurdles and it's just kind of not here. Right? Technically it may be, but it's not actually like being deployed en masse that I've seen. And so when that does happen though, imagine how things will shift. Right? I've said before that if I could just be the CEO of Tesla for a minute, I would do everything I can to make every one of these cars a battery so that way we can plug it into the grid. And now Tesla is not an automaker, they're a utility, they're an energy generator.
Right.
And they have the auto bidder software and all the other kind of stuff that they have going on. I'm like, that is such a gold mine right there with so many EVs on the road. If you could tap into them and then just reshape how energy is done in the whole state, which is massive, right? If you can do that here, then you can do it anywhere. So for me, virtual power plants are one of the things that I think would be, or as they go. So,
Yeah.
You know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I would leave all the technical stuff to all the mechanical engineers that are much smarter than I am. I'm really interested in this, just the software side of it.
Yeah.
And I think that the home energy management system as a whole is going to be a big key part of the movement of solar. And when we look at the countries that are further ahead down this path than we are, Germany and the Netherlands and things like that, where they have 30+% adoption and 80+% attachment rate on batteries across the board. What the startup companies there are doing is they're trying to find a way to consolidate as many different energy management products as they can, pool pumps and battery systems and everything else in one platform to create efficiencies there. We're ways away from that.
Yeah.
But that's the direction it's going to go. We will all move further and further away from utilities, and utility companies will combat it with like dynamic tariffs and more complicated ways of charging people money for the power they create. That's their prerogative and their right as a business owner. But when we try and actually do what we all say we're going to do from the beginning, which is to harness free power from the sun, then the only way you can start doing that effectively is if you have an energy management system that takes into account all the pieces of your home, not just solar. So solar, the battery, all the smart devices that are in your house, and how do you manage that in one platform that provides enough efficiency that you can control that from an app or from your phone or wherever it might be. You now start gaining a different customer, and the sales process changes because you're no longer talking about selling a piece of equipment. You're talking about selling a service, or you're talking about selling a high quality product that is greater than just, hey, I got solar panels I'm going to sell you, and I'm going to differentiate myself by the next guy by saying I'm a tier 1 panel and this guy's that, or I've got different, like that stuff is old and boring, and we're no longer talking about do I save money? We're talking about do I provide value?
Yeah.
And if you're doing that and you do provide value, how do you connect it all with one piece of software or a software management system that does it? That, to me, I think is where the future of this sales process will go and where the environment will go as a whole.
You couldn't have sold Franklin any better. And this is why you guys are so successful at Coda, selling Franklin whole home. This is literally what we're trying to do, right? I joke it like this. The utility has access to your home, your livelihood, your money. Like they can access any part really of your family's infrastructure that they want to through power cables, even your property, right? They have an easement. The reality is when you put in a Franklin A-gate, you got a 280 amp bus bar, and we're changing the service entrance on the utility, right, to be the A-gate. I kind of liken it as changing the locks on like an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, you know, like, sorry, like I could lock you out now, you don't belong here. You're the last person, like, unless I really need you, I might open the door. But the reality is yeah, we're shutting this off and we're gonna manage these power devices, all of these sources as one on a single app, you know, so you could see everything. So thank you for that really good answer that I did not prep you for at all. All right, so last thing I kind of want to bring up and to discuss before we do some sign-offs. Loans, PPAs, cash, credit unions, like the industry and how people pay for these systems has completely changed. And really it has gotten a lot more expensive, right? Jake, you gave a great diatribe on PPAs the other day. And why do you think people are shifting to PPAs? And how can installers understand why that may be better or worse for their business under what circumstances? What are you seeing?
Oh man, truthfully, the reason I think a lot of them are switching to PPAs is simply because the sales reps get more money off of it right now than they do on loans.
Yeah.
They didn't have to take as much of an impact on their income, and they transitioned quickly. That conviction that they had shifted.
Instantly, yeah.
And I'm sorry, but that is the truth of it. I mean, if they were that convicted in selling loans, then they would have adjusted their income first, right? And so if you were to ask me, the reason for that switch is salespeople. But the healthiest mindset that you could possibly have, I believe, is to be agnostic to whatever the financing option is. And again, for the sales force, the sales industry to be educated to where they can actually speak with neutrality to each one of these products, because a lot of times homeowners aren't necessarily they're not gonna want to divulge kind of like the personal finances, their incomes. They're not gonna want to tell that to a complete stranger, as charismatic as you may be, right? So it's better. I think it's better, and you actually close more accounts and sell more accounts if you were agnostic to list the pros and cons. Solar sells itself because people already want it. There's a reason we're all in the home, right? There's a reason we're on the other end of the phone or on the other end of the computer, because they actually really already want it. All we're doing is screwing it up by offering one motive that fits our agenda, right? That's how it's getting messed up. That's why homeowners go shopping. They just feel like they didn't get enough information, so they have to go find it somewhere else. So if we can just educate our sales force again to understanding the benefits, the pros and cons of each one, and then portraying what that might look like to the homeowner in front of them, based on the criteria they give them, illustrate what the future may look like, what the repercussions might be. Then I think salespeople would not only close more, I think it would actually make the entire process more efficient for the installers as well. Less cancellations, better expectations, paperwork's easier to get, funding problems decrease because we're not getting held up for documents. Like, I think as a whole, it starts right side of the home.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one side of it, and I agree with Jake 100%.
Yeah.
The other side of it, though, is, and this, I'm going to try and do this without being as emotional as I probably would be otherwise.
No, get emotional, man. This is we're all
I
friends
think
here.
that the industry as a whole has had a lot of irresponsibility and a lot of immaturity across every single sector. Salespeople, for sure. Installers, yes. But what we don't often talk about is finance companies. And if we roll the curtain back a little bit, okay,
Yeah.
let's go back 2-3 years ago when solar was just frothy.
Yeah.
Like you could pick someone up out of kindergarten, they could sell to their neighbor because they're so easy.
Yeah.
And people were making money hand over fist. Everyone was crushing it. And everyone was like, this is the greatest thing ever, and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're a small business and you're an installer and you want to go scale and grow, you need capital. It's hard to go raise institutional funding when you are 1 year, 2 years, 3 years old. You go to a Bank of America or Wells Fargo, Chase, something, go get a small business line of credit or something, and they say, show me your last 5 years of tax returns. And you're like, I've been in business for 2 years and I'm crushing it. Look at my numbers. Like, I don't want to talk to you unless you've been in business for 5 years. Getting institutional funding to grow your business became challenging. So now you get a lender who's making a rip on every single deal, right? That they're tranching those accounts and selling them off. The lender comes and says, hey, we need you guys to sell more accounts. What do we got to do? How do we get you to sell more accounts? And the installer says, I can't really sell more accounts because I don't have enough capital to grow. And they say, I got an idea. How about I float you some M1s? I'll help you grow that way. And the M1s go from 10%, 15%. All of a sudden, someone's giving 50% M1s to someone, and a colored company goes out of business, pink, right? Because they got 50% M1s. That's a microcosm. It's a huge black eye, but it happens across the board. We're looking at 70% of the companies in the nation, they're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
Because they're not financially literate. And it's because we've empowered an entire group of people to raise their business off of an M1 policy that's destructive.
Right.
The M1 policies were used to float the business, and they used to hand out money to sales reps so they could grow too. The whole thing was based on something that a small business couldn't go get institutional funding for, and so they leveraged a lender. So then when the Federal Reserve rates go up, what does the lenders do? Suddenly they start restricting all the money that gets paid out because all of their loans they sold in the last 2 months that had their interest rates raised 4 times the last 2 months are now all toxic assets.
Yeah.
They're holding paper that's no longer valuable. And so what do? They go, I got an idea. I'm going to restrict the milestones in which I pay out the funding. So in some ways, yes, the sales reps are dictating what's being sold because they're making more money on a PPA, for sure. They're doing it, but also because the installer's like, I can't sell this anymore because I'm not getting funded. And when you have a PPA company that then starts to explode because the volume of people left loans to go sell PPAs, now you have another problem.
Yeah, right.
The pendulum swung the opposite direction, which now you have companies like Infinity, sadly, that went out of business.
Yeah.
You've got companies, Infinity's a phenomenal company in California.
Yeah, $180 million pipeline.
Top
when they
10
shut down.
company in the nation, number 3 in California. All they did was switch providers. They basically just said, I don't want to work exclusively with one PPA provider, I want to go to another instead. And what happened? That company was like, I'm no longer going to do you favors and make sure that the 87 pictures are required to send us in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that one's too pixelated, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to say that's too pixelated, I'm not going to fund you. So we have, as an industry, we have a tremendous amount of irresponsibility that went around the whole group because people were willing to say, it's easy money right now and I'm willing to let things go, but I'm not willing to do it anymore when it got tough. And so when the banks start closing things and they start really restricting cash flow, everyone starts to get hurt. So PPAs are the current fad because they're the darling of the industry right now and everyone wants to go sell them because they're available. But if we don't, as an industry, figure out how to take care of ourselves financially, what happened to everyone over this last 6 months will triple in the next 6 months. Like the carnage that we just watched will triple.
Yeah.
People have to make sure that they're well documented on their finances. They have to make sure they talk to their peers. That's what I was saying at the beginning. You have to talk to your competitors. I sit on the RSA, as Jake mentioned. It's a phenomenal organization. Mark Bench, who's here and is the president of the RSA, he is, in my opinion, one of the only people that I know of that's a profitable business right now. And I reach out to him and I ask him things like, dude, what did you do? How are you profitable when everyone else is flunking the industry right now? They're all getting Fs. What are you doing? And he basically told me a bunch of financial decisions he made that were really hard, but they were the right things to do. And I don't know how many people have that kind of discipline.
Yeah.
And if we're not doing that as a group, as an industry, we're in trouble.
Oh, man. Wow, Scott. Thank you, sir. I agree with you so much. And we can't be afraid to say this stuff, right? Like, we all get to look each other in the eye and have really honest conversations. What a blessing that is to be able to work in that space. It usually comes with some scars and some pain, right? Yeah. But we'll get through it. Ben, what's your next big thing that we can point people to? Because this is also going to be on the podcast, so internet's going to see it. What's next for you?
So on the YouTube channel, I've got a few big projects. I'm adding solar to my house. I got in just before NEM3. So, and I was pleading with everybody I possibly could.
Easy 12 months.
Get all of that in now.
Yeah.
Battery, we can do that later. That's fine. But get the solar, any panels you want. So I've got that coming up, and I'm doing a new panel as well with that. Maybe some updates from you guys if you have some new stuff coming out. We'll be working because I have Franklin batteries at my house. And then I'm doing an off-grid shed as well.
Yeah, we got you.
Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like an artist studio in the backyard. And I've got a couple companies looking to help figure that out. So we'll have a fun little DIY project that maybe a bit above my pay grade now, but it will be nice content for people to watch if they want to do something similar.
Rad. Yeah. Les, what can we expect to see from Green Tech Talks this year? What are you really looking forward to just tackling and educating the industry on? What's next?
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying this campaign I'm doing with the City of Bakersfield, the Destination for Innovation. And that format is going to continue in one way or another, and ultimately it's the format I developed with LinkedIn. It's working really well. I'm going to keep that going. I am excited though about doing more traveling and collaboration with various organizations, not just from an economic development perspective, from a business development perspective too. So I want to help companies build community, because I think community is really the key within the industry, stakeholders across the community where you exist, where you want to manufacture. All of that needs to be really levered up at this point in time. For all the reasons that we're talking about here, we should all be talking as much as we are competing with each other. That goes across installation industry, development, manufacturing, so on and so forth. It also requires us ultimately to collaborate on a regional basis, a city basis, and so forth. So I'm trying to bring people together, and we'll continue to do that, working with people in the state of California, the governor's office, people at the DOE and NRO and so forth, to try to make things happen. So if you want to make things happen, I think community is the answer, and I'm here to help companies and organizations facilitate community in general. So that's what I'm working on.
I love that, Les. All right, Jake. SolarCon is in 3 months to the day almost, yeah? It's the 16th?
Yeah, 18th, 19th, 20th.
19th to 20th. So outside of that, in our surf session tomorrow, what do you see as your biggest role, right, in the next immediate future, next Q1, Q2? Outside of running SolarCon, what are you doing to help everybody kind of get squared away?
Right, so I'm working on creating transparency for the industry. Right now we're on the first parts of a news network for the industry, and like actual visualizing the news, just like you would in a city, right? And we've been having some interesting meetings about that, streaming it on Apple and other places. So we're working on that. This year at SolarCon, we're releasing the awards for the entire industry. We haven't really announced it yet. This is the first.
Hey! Yeah.
But we have Home Analytics helping us with some data, and we're working to clean that up. We have committees formed that are voting on the criteria. The award itself is actually pretty amazing. Blown glass, like a flame, like a solar flare. Pretty cool.
Sick.
So we have the awards coming out. We have other television shows that we're creating, so you can actually truly create a network. Because one thing I've noticed in this industry, there's not a lot of ad space. The only places you can go are conferences.
Yeah.
And I know these costs, so I figure we can find a way to do it less and have more eyes on it. So creating transparency and clarity to the industry, I believe that if we can, almost like Hollywoodize our industry a little bit, like allow people to see our commercials and what we're putting out there, which one of the awards is a media award. I believe that we can actually filter out all the riffraff. We can say like, oh no, you were very public with that, and that is very wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry. Next, right?
Yeah.
So we're working on that a little bit, holding people a bit more accountable. We're stepping our toes into that one a little bit because we did it once with one bank, and the theory of the power of the money came down on us real fast.
Yeah.
So we pulled that. Working on that.
I love that. Well, guys, listen, you guys are the best of what you do, and I'm really grateful for your time to sit here. Our first ever Franklin podcast, so this will go up on YouTube and try to compete with you, brother. But yeah, what a delight to have you guys. I look forward to hanging out with you more for the rest of the weekend or week. Please enjoy yourselves, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.